Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Open Mic. One of the biggest sports stories right now has been the coaching carousel in college football. Some of the bigger names in the Power Four have made coaching changes despite the current season still going on. The biggest certainly being Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss, joining LSU. That's all made possible when LSU parted ways with Brian Kelly a bit earlier. That was really the first domino that needed to fall. But University of Florida has made a change. Auburn, Arkansas, Virginia Tech, Michigan State, a lot of schools involved, and that's kind of what happens at this point in the calendar. And here to help clarify is one of our newest Sportscaster.com contributors, J.C. Fox. He's a freshman sports media major at Mississippi College down in Clinton, Mississippi, and he's a proud graduate of Oakdale Academy in Waterford, Michigan. J.C. Fox, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of changes in college football this year, especially with coaches, and as coaches have to learn to adjust to the new format with NIL, the transfer portal, there's a lot more pressure than there has previously been, and some longtime coaches who were recognizable faces have been fired. Some group of five coaches getting upgraded to Power Five jobs, especially in the SEC. And then a little bit of some shifting loyalties within conferences were seen as well. And one of the coaching changes, the aspects of it rather, that really stood out to me were some faces of brands who are out of their jobs in 2025. Mike Gundy and James Franklin. Mike Gundy, the Oklahoma State coach, spent 21 seasons in Stillwater. He has the school record, 170 wins, and he had a 3-9 campaign last year, 1-2 to start this year, lost to Tulsa at the beginning of the year, and he was let go. Someone who's synonymous with Oklahoma State Cowboy football. And then James Franklin, who was at Penn State for 12 seasons. He had 104 wins with the Nittany Lions and had them in the postseason, top 25 7 times, but he just couldn't win the big game at Penn State, so they let him go. And while Mike Gundy is still looking for a job, James Franklin was hired at Virginia Tech, and he was brought in to bring a winning culture, championship level success back to that football program, as the Hokies have not won the ACC since 2017 and have just one bowl win since 2017. So they're looking for James Franklin to bring success back to the football field at Virginia Tech. And then there are also some group of five coaches getting their first crack at SEC head coaching experience. Ryan Silverfield going from Memphis to Arkansas, John Summerall going from Tulane to Florida, and then Alex Golish going from South Florida to Auburn. It is really a volatile landscape right now, the SEC conference, and that's shown by the whole Lane Kiffin saga that happened this past week. Kiffin led the Ole Miss Rebels to a 38-19 win in the Egg Bowl over Mississippi State, and after that game, the wait for his decision really began. A lot of people thought maybe Florida early on, and then Florida seemed to drop out of the Kiffin sweepstakes, if you will. LSU came out as the top dog to win over Kiffin, and it was really a 48-hour wait to see what his decision would be. A lot of meetings, a lot of drama. He's staying, he's leaving, he wants this, he wants that. So it was really an interesting time in Oxford and Baton Rouge. And one Ole Miss fan I talked to, once it was announced that Kiffin would leave Ole Miss and he would be the next head coach of the LSU Tigers, said, "You can't blame him for taking the job. We're just very frustrated with the way he went about it." But in Oxford, there's still hope. Pete Golding was promoted from the defensive coordinator to the permanent head coach this past weekend. And the Rebels should be in the college football playoff. They had a very impressive season, almost made it to the SEC championship game. So it'll be interesting to watch that story through December and January. And then for me, probably the most intriguing story of this college football coaching carousel, if you will, is Jonathan Smith out at Michigan State, Pat Fitzgerald in. The former Northwestern coach, Pat Fitzgerald, was fired in 2023 from the Wildcats, but he has 65 Big Ten wins on his resume. He led his Wildcat teams to the Big Ten championship game a couple times. They had 5 appearances in the postseason, top 25. He had a lot of success at Northwestern, and Pat Fitzgerald, more than anyone, knows how to do more with less. In the Big Ten, really, especially Michigan is dominated by Michigan, and then Ohio State for recruiting. So Pat Fitzgerald will have to battle with those two powerhouses in the recruiting scene, but he knows how to do it. And this move has prompted mixed emotions in the Spartans locker room and the Spartans fan base. One player said, quote, Pat Fitzgerald is a home run hire. People might not realize it yet, but they will. And then another player commented saying, quote, love the Fitzgerald hire. MSU needs a coach who can build a program and establish a strong culture back in East Lansing. He's routinely done more with less, end quote. And that's really what the story is here, more than less. How does that translate with Pat Fitzgerald? He's a coach who's willing to adapt and change and knows how to win. And it seems that the Michigan State locker room and their fan base are very excited for this hire. And even though there have been a lot of coaching changes, there were also a lot of coaches who were signed to massive extensions, as there were rumors floating around about would they get hired here, would they get hired there. Kurt Signetti, Eli Drinkwitz, Clark Lee, Mike Elko, Matt Rule, and a whole host of others were rumored for a lot of open jobs, but that earned them massive extensions at their school. So the pressure's on for them now to win and to keep the boosters happy. But as we look at all this, the question might be why are there all these changes? Why does this feel so chaotic? And a couple reasons could be NIL pressure. Now it's boosters pressuring you and the athletic department. That has really changed college football. The transfer portal, the ability to keep players, retain them on your roster, but also recruit guys from other teams. And then still a little bit of conference movement stuff going on as conferences get bigger, teams have to cement their identity and find ways to win in conferences that are becoming harder and harder to win in. So if 2025 is any indication of the way coaching is going to be for the foreseeable future, there are a whole bunch of rapid changes, not just on the field, but in the sidelines, the recruiting offices, the boosters. And for fans, that means some uncertainty, some excitement, and maybe a few shockers. For players, especially those considering entering the transfer portal, it could ultimately reshape their collegiate career entirely.
Very well done, very well researched, and I'm with you. That I feel like we're living in a stage. I think change, change is imminent, change is coming because, but this is the way that it is right now, and it almost feels like there's such a flurry. There's so much uh, investment involved, and I'm not talking about just like emotional investment, but like you mentioned, the boosters and the athletic programs and NIL. Like everybody wants a cut of this stuff, and it's like we need to win now more than ever. Like you got to win today, win recruiting, win the transfer portal, win your conference, win a national championship, win over the boosters. And the timeline for that, like you mentioned, Jonathan Smith at Michigan State, used to be you get about 4 years to bring in your own recruits, develop, and move. Now nobody has 4-year recruits anymore. So, like Kurt Signetti is the unicorn because of what he's been able to do at Indiana, where he proved, hey, you can come into a place that's on, I think you would say, on a level of like a Michigan State in the Big Ten Conference, and he runs it back and puts an undefeated season together in year two after advancing to the playoff a year ago. But that probably, rather than saying, well, that's the expectation for all these other schools that you mentioned that have gone to a new coaching hire, he's different. But it's just fascinating to me as we work through this thing, and then how this is going to evolve in the college game and the calendar in years ahead. But this is the way that it is right now, and teams are capitalizing right now. Um, I like the hire of Pat Fitzgerald at Michigan State. We'll see how it plays out, obviously. But obviously, if you can win at the Big Ten, which he's proven to do at a place like Northwestern, I think you'll do well in East Lansing. But to your point, JC, obviously, when you're recruiting, it's one thing recruiting in the Chicago area in the backyard. And now you say, okay, now you get to East Lansing and you got to out recruit Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Indiana, and everybody else. It'd be tough sledding for them, but I guess we'll just see how it all plays out. But uh, very good, man. Very good insight on all of it. And I look forward to having you on the show a little bit farther down the line. Maybe we'll do, once we get into the middle of next college football season, we can reflect on some of these, the hires that have been made at, the Auburns, Ole Misses, Arkansas, and Michigan States, and we'll reset.
Yes, it'll be very, very interesting to see how this all unfolds and what happens, especially next season.
All right, very good. He is J.C. Fox, Oakdale Academy graduate from Waterford, now down at Mississippi College in Clinton, Mississippi. We're going to turn the page from college football because coming up next, it's a heartwarming story about a young man who overcame brain surgery as a young boy. He is now working with the Detroit Pistons. You'll hear that story on the other side of this break.